Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we are starting a brand new bridal gown for the year, and we'll be making the muslin of this design. It's a nice open back with a lace overlay and a little mini dress underneath, so it's going to be a really cute design. It's got that nice slit in it in the skirt. So we're going to start with cutting out the bodice. From the muslin, I'm using I'd say a medium weight unbleached cotton muslin, the regular kind of muslin I use for these types of mock-ups. So the purpose of a muslin, if you don't know, is to do a working draft of your design. So you can work out the fitting of the seam lines, darts, just make sure everything fits together nicely. You can, I usually do my seam allowances, you see, very, very large. So right now what I'm doing is thread tracing those seam allowances. So these stitch lines give you a good guide of following the seams and making sure they line up. It gives that sort of tactile feeling when you're matching them up. It's really handy, and you extend all the way through the piece so that you can match the ends very nicely, and it helps for truing up the edges of the allowances as well. So I'm doing that with every single piece, especially the bodice, just because it has princess seams and you really want to make sure those lines match up nicely. So I've done the neckline, and now I'm doing those princess seams, and we'll cover how to do these in the main actual dress later on, but this is just, it was a really easy one. She doesn't have a very large bust or anything, so the curve is very simple. You just have to work with the extra allowance there. So my seam allowances are 1 inch for all the vertical seams, except for the princess seam. Necklines are also 1/2 inch, and that's what I like to work with. It just gives me some extra, just in case, you know, it is a little tight, I can loosen it a little bit right on her. So up next, I am cutting out the mini skirt portion of the skirt and copying over my dart points there, just making sure I snip into those notch marks. I don't like to draw my notch marks. I'd prefer to snip them into the seam allowance. But the dart point I will also mark with a wax marker or a chalk marker. I'm gonna start doing the skirt pieces by doing the darts first, and then I'll do the thread tracing onto the seams afterwards. It just makes things easier to do the waist seams so that I don't have to skip over the darts. I don't know. It's just what I did. So now I'm doing, you know, the side seams, the hem I've left at 2 inches, so I want to make sure that is thread traced and I know where it's going to end up, and she has a clear visual line of where it's going to end. Now for the large overlay skirt, I'm cutting it out single layer, which I recommend for all large skirts like this. Even if it can fit on a folded piece of paper, I just prefer to do it single layer and do it right side up, so you know exactly what you're cutting out and you don't end up, you know, cutting out a mismatched piece of, you know, you cut out one and then you don't flip it over, or so just cut them out single layer. It makes things a lot easier. You do have to flip the piece over. If muslin is fine, but if you're working with a satin that's shinier on the other side, you definitely want to flip over that piece for cutting out the second mirror side, right? So you got to think of that. But now we're doing all the seams for the overlay skirt there. I've made this in a thinner muslin so that it has still a little bit of a sheer quality. It's very thin and loose weave, So we'll see how that goes. So these are the 3 pieces together. You can see the little mini skirt there. It's going to be tight. It's going to have a little bit of stretch in it. The bodice will have a full interlining lining, so it's going to be very structured still because it does have thin straps that I will be doing just out of some extra salvage material. I wasn't going to bother on a muslin doing actual spaghetti strap and loop it through and everything like that. So salvage is very strong and I've got lots of it, so we'll be just sewing little pieces there. So that's the overlay skirt. I've left the slit open and just sort of pressed under so that you can still see the nice effect that it will have. And it of course will be made out of lace. Same with the bodice, it will have a nice matching lace overlay to it. But I think we will leave the mini skirt plain. I think just lace on lace might be a little too much. We'll see how she goes and of course what the client would like. There you can see the spaghetti straps. They're left a little bit long because I'm sure I will need to adjust that when I try it on her. So you can see the split there. It opens nicely and you can see the mini skirt underneath. But yeah, I think I am very pleased with how this turned out. We will be looking for that fabric and maybe I'll take you guys along with me for that. You can see a little bit of the train there. Oh, it's just gonna be such a pretty dress when it's all done. And the bodice is all filled out with that interlining and lining. So next up, we're gonna fit this on the client. It won't be for a while. Her wedding isn't until actually next year. But I thank you guys so much for watching with me today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, happy sewing!